Did you know that iCore Array gives out quest lines that rewards 9 free exotic armor pieces? During the Spark of Hope questline, Commanders of Allah asks you to speak to iCore at the tower where she will give 3 exotic armor pieces per class, available for you to pick up once you've unlocked all 3 light subclasses. This is going to be the start of a new video series called Beginner Builds. I'm your host, Caveman PRDR, and let's dive right into it. But before we do, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, as both help out me tremendously as I make content for you guys. Thank you. Let's get on with the video. Hello guys, welcome to another YouTube video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the young Ahamkara spine. This is the Hunter arm exotic that enhances the trip mine grenade. Specifically, it has armor perk, voice dragon teeth, increases trip mine grenade duration and blast radius, gains trip mine grenade energy from ability final blows. You can get this exotic through iCore Array once you've unlocked all your light subclasses, and specifically through the quest line Exalting the Flame. So once you've completed that quest line and once you've unlocked the all of the light subclasses, you will be able to obtain Young Ahamkara Spine. Young Ahamkara Spine primarily is going to be used for ad clear. There was a time before where it was actually really good with ad clear, and it also did pretty decent single target damage. However, that was nerfed, as the way that it used to work was you would gain a trip mine grenade energy from ability hits. It wouldn't just be ability final blows. So that mainly really took out a lot of the exotic's strength in single target damage. So this is basically reverted back to just being primarily for ad clear. And there were other nerfs to Young Ahamkara Spine, but they're mainly due to PvP reasons. This exotic, I would say, it's good for beginners. I wouldn't say that it's something that you can take into GMs or really high end difficulty. I would say it's something that you would want to probably keep at level, maybe around the lower Nightfall levels. I don't think this is something you want to take into a GM, but I think this is pretty good for pretty basic bounty clearing for things like solar ability kills and whatnot. If you need to just clear up some bounties like that, I think this is still a nice, pretty decent at level content build that still has strength. And now we will go over the solar abilities, aspects, and fragments. We're going to be using Blade Barrage for the super of choice. We're going to be using Gambler's Dodge to dodge roll near an enemy and gain your melee ability back. We're going to be using Triple Jump. You can use a jump of your choice. I'm personally using Weighted Throwing Knife, throwing a knife that deals extra precision damage and causes scorched targets to ignite. So this knife can apply scorch and it can cause an ignition. Precision final blows with this knife immediately recharge your class ability, and then we are going to be using the trip mine grenade, which is necessary for the build. Knock them down is going to be very important to use. Your solar supers are enhanced. Deadshot Golden Gun gains DR. Marksman Golden Gun has increased duration, and Blade Barrage launches more projectiles, while Radiant Final Blows with your equipped throwing knife fully refund your melee energy. So we're going to be using this in synergy with the fragments here. Shortly I will list. And Gunpowder Gamble, defeating targets with solar abilities, solar debuffs, or solar weapons to charge up an improvised solar explosive. So we're going to go into the fragments now. Ember of Torches powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. So we're going to be using Ember of Torches to gain the passive abilities from Knock 'em Down. So you're going to use a charged melee to hit an enemy and gain radiant, and whenever you become radiant you immediately get that knife charge back. And when you're using your knife, let's say you've already used your dodge roll, and let's say you threw a knife, lost a knife, you used your dodge roll because of Gambler's Dodge, you can use that to gain your knife back. Once you hit an enemy with it, you can use Radiant. You can hit an enemy with it to gain Radiance thanks to Ember of Torches, and you can also get your dodge roll ability back whenever you get the precision final blow with the weighted throwing knife. And you can also gain the knife back immediately thanks to Ember of Torches with this gameplay loop with Knock 'em Down. For Ember of Mercy, when you revive an ally, you and your other nearby allies gain Restoration. Picking up a Fire Sprite grants Restoration. Restoration is going to be a solar buff that we will use to start health regen, which is going to be a fairly nice addition to the build. Ember of Searing, defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. So we're going to be spawning these fire sprites with Ember of Searing by defeating scorched targets. We'll get into a little bit more of a way that we are going to be scorching targets. Or specifically, I'll break it down now. The weighted throwing knife can scorch targets or specifically ignite targets. The trip mine grenade can scorch targets. The gunpowder gamble can scorch targets. And we're going to be using weapons that have incandescent later, which will spread scorch to targets once you've defeated a target. And then the final fragment of choice for me is Ember of Soulless. Radiant Restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. So once you pick up a fire sprite, you're going to be getting Restoration. Whenever you throw your charged melee ability at an enemy, you will be getting Radiant, so this will help increase the duration of these effects, of these solar buffs. And now we're going to move on to the stat distrib. For mobility, you kind of want to have a mid to moderate mobility if at all possible. I think having it too high may be a little bit too much. So I choose to kind of keep it moderate at tier 7. For PvE, you want to have as high of resilience as possible because you want that 30% damage reduction. Recovery, I have it at moderate to medium because even though it is PvE, you still want to have some sort of decent health regen. And the restoration gains you get with fire sprites will help with this, as well as orb generation that we'll talk about later. Discipline, you kind of want to have a moderate discipline stat, as this is going to directly contribute to you getting your trip mine grenade back. Intellect stat contributes to your super. You don't have to run this one very high. You can run it lower if you want. You don't have to run it very high, but it is nice to have the super available when you need it to do single target damage. And then strength is going to be your cooldown for your melee, for your charged melee. I don't run this one too high just because once I have my dodge roll, I'm using Gambler's Dodge. So whenever I personally don't run too high strength, I run a moderately low strength because I'll have such high uptime on my class ability that I'll just use Marksman's Dodge near an enemy to gain my melee energy back, or to fully refund my charged melee, just in case I'm low on it. And now to go on with the build, on the helmet, you can choose a different variety of things, but in particular, because I'm using an incandescent weapon, I think because you're trying to spawn as many of the fire sprites as possible, I think it is pretty necessary to use a harmonic siphon if you're going to use a primary weapon with incandescent. I would recommend using a harmonic siphon mod. And if you have the room, you can use Ashes to Assets and Heavy Ammo Finder. If you're doing team-based activities, maybe swap out the Ashes to Assets for Heavy Ammo Scout, but that is up to you how you want to do that. The Ashes to Assets gives bonus super energy on grenade kills. I personally like running that on this build because of using the trip mine grenade to get a final blow. And then Heavy Ammo Finder is nice because you can increase the chance of heavy ammo drop rate. And if you're running with other teammates, like I recommended earlier, to use Heavy Ammo Scout, you can also make heavy bricks for your allies when you make your own heavy brick. We're going to go to the arm piece now. So We're going to be using our armor charge system for grenade kickstart to gain grenade energy back. We're going to be using bolstering detonation, grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade. So we plan on having high grenade uptime. We want to be able to get our class ability back when we're using this. Using impact induction, causing damage with a powered melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. So we're going on to the chest piece. I am running charged up, increases the amount of number of armor charges that I can carry by 1. The default number that you can carry is 3, so this will raise it up to 4, and then I'm leaving 2 mod slots up to choice for resistance mods, or maybe even using a reserve mod, depending on what you want to use. For the leg pieces, I'm using stacks on stacks. Picking up an orb of power grants 1 additional stack of armor charge. So whenever you gain an armor charge from an orb of power, you can get an additional one. And we're also going to be using the orbs of power, specifically other leg mods, to gain other benefits from those, such as Innervation, reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power, and then we're going to be using Recuperation, replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power. And then we'll go on to the class item, where we'll be using Time Dilation. Your decaying armor charge has a longer duration, so this gives us more uptime on the armor charge and more grenade energy we can get back every time we use grenade kickstart. And you can also use bomber, reduces your grenade cooldown when using your class ability. Maybe even consider powerful attraction, automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability. This is something that you will want to consider. And I guess the last thing I really want to cover is weapons that have incandescent. I highly recommend running ones that have incandescent, as incandescent spreads scorch, and defeating enemies that have been scorched is what gains fire sprites, and fire sprites give, thanks to this kit, or this set of aspects and fragments specifically. Once you pick up a fire sprite, you are able to start restoration, and you can also gain grenade energy whenever you pick up a fire sprite. So I highly consider using primaries that you're going to use for ad clear. I highly recommend using weapons that have incandescent rolls. I've been really liking Apocal integration lately. I don't think you can go wrong with it. Callus Mini Tool is a fan favorite. Probably most people's favorite solar SMG right now. It can get enhanced incandescent. I'm also a big fan of the BXR pulse rifle, using it in PvE. I really like enhanced incandescent on it, but it's ultimately going to be up to you on what you want to use. If you're a person that really likes doing ad clear with the heavy machine gun, I would seriously consider getting a solar LMG that has incandescent, and you can spawn a lot of fire sprites that way. I personally like using weapons for DPS and saving them in my power weapon slot, but you don't have to have that every single moment of every single session. That's just whatever you prefer. And with that being said, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one.